You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
This is a special episode. Dispensed Marketing, who is the developer and is it a producer? Is it editor of a magazine called Dispense Times, which is one of my favorites, just because of the mix-up, the diversity of the content that's there. Josh, talk to our listeners. Just introduce yourself quickly and let them know about Dispense Times.
Yes, Todd, thank you. I'm Josh Pirestani with Dispense Times. I'm the marketing director. Dispense Times is a publication for community pharmacies, such as like independent pharmacy owners. It's just to get industry-related, news and content that relates to them out there in the industry.
Yeah, we really like this magazine. I think this is the third or fourth issue that just came out. One of our guests, Dr. Masoud Rashidi, is with us. He's a pharmacy owner. We're going to be jumping into compounding, but Masoud, talk to us about yourself. Tell us about yourself and the pharmacy that you run and what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, Todd, thanks for having me on your show. I'm the compounding pharmacist and pharmacy owner. We have a compounding pharmacy in California. We started back in 2007, and we've been growing, of course, and helping many patients, a lot of patients and prescribers to get their compounding needs. And we are pretty much, it's myself and my wife who started. We're both pharmacists, and we out of school after a couple of years of working for chains. We thought there's a niche and we need to help people more. So we started the compounding pharmacy, and then eventually we grew and started doing sterile, non-sterile. We do pretty much all kind of pharmacy compounding as non-sterile, sterile, and USB 800, which is hazardous as well too.
I guess we can call it a panel, because if you get more than 3 people on a podcast, it's now called a panel. So our fourth panel member is no stranger to podcasting, has an amazing show, Darshan Talks, that's been out for more than 5-6 years. I'm losing. I can't keep track of it, Darshan, but I'm so glad you're here with us.
Todd, thank you as always for having me. I appreciate it. Do I have to introduce myself, or?
There's some listeners out there who might be like, who is this Darshan cat? If you've listened to the Pharmacy Podcast Network, you already know. But if this is the first time you're listening, we want you to know all the panelists. So yeah, definitely introduce yourself.
Well, apparently I'm a cat is what Todd just described me as. So that's always a good sign. I'm also in, Josh looks presidential, literally. So I'm a little worried right now. He looks very powerful. Like there might be a nuclear strike he launches pretty soon, just based on the flag behind him and everything. And that chair is presidential.
Yeah.
And then we've got Masoud who's running a big time pharmacy. So I am also a pharmacist, but I'm also an attorney. In terms of degrees, I have a doctorate in pharmacy. Worked as a pharmacist for probably about 15, 17 years, maybe more. I can't remember. I lost track at some point. Worked as a lawyer for about the same amount of time. I'm also have a master's in quality assurance and regulatory affairs from Temple School of Pharmacy. I also have a fellowship in interprofessional geriatric care. I'm also a fellow of the College of Healthcare Trustees. I teach at Drexel University. I teach food and drug law, and I teach drug advertising. I serve on multiple editorial and advisory boards, including the Emily Whitehead Foundation, which addresses the needs of pediatric cancer. I've written multiple books. You mentioned the podcast, and there are multiple other things I do, but that gives you a little taste of what I do. And I'm really, really blessed to be here. So thank you for having me, Todd, Josh, Masoud. Pleasure.
All right, listeners, before we get started, we want you to hear the famous line. Darshan, I want you to say it. I want you to say the famous line that you say all the time. I'm a lawyer, but
This is not legal advice. It is not intended for medical, legal, or regulatory advice. So it is for educational purposes only.
There you go. I love it. If I don't hear it, then it's not an official podcast with Darshan. So gotta have it. All right. So
always the case, right? For us too. It's not going to be any medical advice here, just because. Thanks for bringing it up, Darshan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I was trying to find, when did the GLP craze hit the United States? And just from flopping around of how intensive and disruptive the pandemic was, coming out of the pandemic, this is when this craze started. So I'm putting the marker and the timeline probably right around 2021, 22. But what do you think, Masoud? When did you see it? When did you see it kind of percolating and starting to grow in the craze throughout the United States?
I mean, as far as at the beginning, I think it was like kind of, by the time people got to know it, like the GLP-1, Ozempic, I mean, it's been around, but then Ozempic got it big because it's once a week, pretty much injectable, and you kind of brought it to the people attention because as you all know, it started as a diabetic medication and then became like a weight loss frame. So everybody's using it. A lot of people are using it for weight loss now. So I mean, last few years, I think two and a half years or so, that's been like on shortages, back shortages, a lot of issues, because it just, so many people want to be on this medication. It's an amazing medication, both GLP-1, GIP, and both of them are working really good and helping a lot of people, of course, if you use it right and correctly. So when we saw, like about 2.5 years ago, they started going on shortage list right after it came out, especially like Zepbound and tirzepatide, they came pretty much on the shortage list as soon as they hit the market, just because nobody anticipated the demand. It was a crazy demand, and everybody like kind of blockbuster drug. It's just like everybody wants to be on it. It's one of those things, and it helps a lot of different things. So we saw the need, and then we started like a lot of compounders started. We started after we found out like where we can, because at the beginning, I know everybody knew the chemicals were not as a base. It had like some mixture in there, salt in there, and both tirzepatide. And we didn't do it at that time until we got a good FDA registered and approved place to get it. So it's been, as you know, a lot of off and on off of the short list and going back on, and it just been a roller coaster. So
yeah,
see how it goes from here on.
Yeah, Darshan, you and I on several podcasts have talked about marketing pharmaceutical medications and the difference between how you can market that and market solutions legally without getting into trouble. And then the element of compounding. A shout out to APC, Scott and his team at the American Pharmacy Compounding. Is it American Pharmacy Compounding?
APC is Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding.
Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding. Sorry, Scott. But what an amazing organization, so tied in. They've brought us a lot of press updates. I get press updates from them every other week. But Darshan, talk to us about kind of like the state of the nation of GLP-1 and semaglutide. And like, I know you and I both know, we see USA Today, Wall Street Journal, things coming out where there's major stories hitting the news about organizations getting in trouble, maybe marketing or doing something wrong. But it's been around long enough now for us to know that there's a good way to do this and there's a bad way to do this. So share us with the listeners your thoughts on this and this whole ecosystem that's come about.
So I think, as Masoud mentioned a little bit ago, I think GLP-1s, GIPs, they represent a fundamental change in how we see our bodies and the help it provides. I think Masoud mentioned, for example, the fact that it started off as a diabetes medication. You already have weight loss approved for the compound. You already have sleep apnea. That's the third one that just recently got approved. And there are discussions about it helping with everything, all kinds of metabolic syndrome issues, right? So we're talking about everything from, and I had someone mention Alzheimer's is the other one that I literally heard. So this is, I think, our generation's Prozac, for lack of a better term. When Prozac came out, everyone talked about how life-changing it was. And this is that generation. The expectations around it have been unprecedented. And I think for that reason, patients said, this gives me opportunities. Liver is the other one that there's some data suggesting it works really well and being hepatoprotective, if you will. The key piece, and I think I fall somewhere in the middle. People come out and say compounding pharmacies are doing ill and they're early in it just for the money. And I go, that's not quite true. You've got patients who need this drug. This drug is not available, and it is changing lives. So to say that pharmacies are doing this purely for the money is idiotic, because the fact is that patients need these drugs. They're telling you they need these drugs. They're going into the doctor saying, I need these drugs. And then you've got someone saying that pharmacies can do no wrong, and that's not true either. We're somewhere in the middle where patient needs need to be met, and how we meet them is going to become essential. I think the positioning, the timing of it was really, really interesting. And what I mean by that is, let's be honest, none of us worked out during COVID, and we all just got fat, and it was great. It was a good time to get fat. I know I did.
I did.
And you come out, and there's a drug out there that's now telling you you can lose weight, and it's going to be able to help you with those needs. It's going to also be able to help you with diabetes. And people who've been struggling with their weight, this gave an opportunity. Doctors are really happy overall because it gives another tool in their toolbox. So when pharmaceutical companies couldn't come in and literally couldn't meet the unprecedented need that they had, compounding pharmacies came in to help. And I think that's a good thing. I think there's also an element of what kind of compounding pharmacy had to be met, and whether it's a 503A or a 503B, those are the considerations that need to be played out. Masoud and I are going to have conversations about that as we continue as well. And then we get into the next element of the juxtaposition of compounding with telemedicine, with doctors' offices, and now the really interesting angle of pharmaceutical companies directly connecting with pharmacies. Yep. And saying, I believe it was HIMSS, where they directly have a relationship, or it's a Roe, whatever it is. Is it Roe? Okay. Dispense the drugs for us, which I think is fascinating. And then you've got pharmaceutical companies saying, well, directly dispense as well, which is interesting as well. So we all know that we are in a unusual confluence of events. Life is changing. Walgreens is saying, for example, that we're shutting down, that we just don't have enough people coming in. We don't have enough market share. And then you've got this issue where you've got not enough drug to go around, and pharmacies are there to help. And Masoud can talk about the unprecedented demand, how he's meeting those needs. And then we can talk about how these lawsuits are all coming in and how it's changing, and how you can look at it from a state, federal, and sort of local level. So what I mean by that is when you start talking about federal, everyone's thinking about the FDA. What is the FDA saying? And that makes sense. There's a reason for that. But the lawsuits, if you look at them, are based often on state law. And the claims being made are often based on state law. And how does that play out? And to the point you're making, Todd, they're often based on marketing claims. Are you, for example, calling yourself Ozempic? Well, that's a problem. And it was just like, no, we're not doing that. We know, we learned better than to do that. And that's smart. But people are still doing that. I'm seeing those ads right now on websites. And it's people who haven't learned from those lessons because they know they're trying to make their last bit of money from that. I think that there are also elements of who do you make it for? Are you customizing it or not? We can get to all of those, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of a lay of the land before I continue and just start do my soliloquy.
Well, it's relevant, and the reason is we're in a brand new year. Every time we hit a new year, there's a surge in people signing up for the gym, starting a new diet, reaffirming their health, and then of course some of them stay and some of them trickle off. I, for one, started 6 months ago back on my own new health journey to reestablish a good weight. I was 186 pounds. I was 5'7". That's considered obese on the
You
count.
were 5'7". How tall are you now?
5'7". I still 5'7". I'm just waiting. I'm waiting to get a little bit higher. It's not happening. Josh won't help me out at standing over here at like 6'4". But so obesity is crazy. I did not know this, but it is as this serious, complex, makes other things worse. It's the statistics is more than 2 of 5 U.S. adults are considered obese. Now,
Surprises that's low. Actually, I thought it'd be higher than that.
it's crazy. So clothes hide a lot, and I'm even good at hiding. That's why I wear black, right? But it affects these groups, and it affects. It increases the diabetic issue. It increases issues on hypertension. It increases almost anything and everything if you're having struggling with being overweight. The type of information that we want to draw to our listeners is coming from you, and Josh meticulously pays attention to what his readers want, and now we want to turn that into audio discussions around this. So as you're listening and you're an expert in fill in the blank, HIV, you're an expert in some specialty disease, pediatrics, shout out to Jenna Quinn out there, just making the whole nation understand what the power of pharmacy is in our pediatric division of healthcare. But the reason why I want to take just a quick short break, especially from a pharmacy owner's perspective, Masoud, is you have an opportunity to learn from each other in the written form, in a podcasting form, in a video form, and we really want to take advantage of this, and we want to pull this forward. So back to that, and what I wanted to kind of ask as a pharmacy owner, talk to us about the effects that this has had on business, and you're doing things the right way. And we see things happening in court cases where a big pharmaceutical company will say, we want to tramp down on the ability for people to compound these things. And that's not in best interest of the public health, because we have to keep compounding pharmacies as free as possible so that we can do things in the right way, obviously, and all the checks and balances. But talk to us about this from a pharmacy owner's perspective. The GLP-1 craze, the semaglutide craze, the way that you can market this the right way, the way that you've done it. And as you're talking, I'm going to be showing off your website. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you're going to see a lot of the references. If you're not, if you're driving, if you're jogging, don't worry about it. I'm going to have a lot of links in our show notes so that you can get a hold of Masoud and also Darshan.
So, I mean, it has changed a lot of things. Like the problem always been, there's always those few bad apples in any industry. They make it wrong for everybody. They mess up the whole thing, and we're trying to we've been doing everything from the get-go. We did a lot of testing before we even introduced it to our the doctors were keep asking, when are you going to have it? We can't get it for our patient. We're like, okay, you got to wait, because I don't want to give something out that I don't know what really it's in there. We have to make sure we spend a lot of money just on testing before we even made any money. And it was not about the money, because we had a lot of patients calling, the doctors calling, our phones were going off the hook. Like, are you going to bring it? California was like, being in California and all that stuff. But then we had to make sure we were doing it the right way, and safety of our patient was the most important thing for us. I mean, I don't want to give him something. Unfortunately, there are places out there, they use research grade chemicals that you don't know there's no certificate. Anything we do, we have to make sure they're like FDA registered facilities. They have the certificate of an analysis. We look at what's in there, the impurities, and then we want to make sure they tested the chemical themselves, like from the third party. And then when it comes to us, we send every batch. Like no medication goes to the patient unless it's been sterility tested by a third party, endotoxin tested by a third party, so we know there's no bacteria in there. It's sterile. We've done a lot of potency testing. We also look at the just to see how we're doing. But unfortunately, a lot of people out there, I mean, you see, they just make these drugs with no as a pharmacy, as a legitimate pharmacy, you have to be a licensed pharmacy. You go to the board of pharmacy, you look at the pharmacy, it's there. Unfortunately, there are a lot of those places online, they're selling it for cheap. God knows what they're selling. That's what I want to make people aware. Just please make sure where you're getting it from. Even, sometimes the doctors, they're trying their best, but sometimes they don't know where. Just make sure, do your due diligence, find out where it's coming from. Is your pharmacy doing any testing on their product, or they're just sending it out to patient? And it's been a lot of pressure on us too, just because we want to be the best one and the best one out there and do the best things. But then at the same time, people doing it the wrong way. But to get back to your question as far as how it affected us, as I said, we're getting a lot of calls. We're still getting a lot of calls. A lot of people, as you said, I mean, unfortunately, American diet is not the best diet. So we have a lot of inflammation and weight gain and things like that's in our diet. And we've been telling the patient for many years. And now, as Darshan mentioned too, this things is just not just for weight loss now. People looking at it for autoimmune, for inflammation, heart disease. And these are the things that people get resolved from while taking it. We don't know. I mean, a lot of doctors now using microdosing, they call it. It's less than what the actual dose of it, and that's where the compounders can help actually to make those microdoses, because when you get a pen, it only gives you that whatever dose, the 0.25 of semaglutide or 2.5 of the tirzepatide. But that's where the compounding really that's why we are there to make those people that they need something that doesn't commercially come. But right now it's a different situation because of the shortage of semaglutide. Right now, we can, per FDA regulation, we can produce them as the way they manufacture, and we don't add anything to it. We pretty much make it as the way that the manufacturer, very similar to what they do. We look at their formulation and we make them the same way, just to have the same efficacy and everything. I mean, I'm not saying we do make him as close as we can to what the manufacturers made, just to make sure people are getting it the right way. And so it just been amazing. It's just one of those drugs that I don't know. It's probably the first time this happened. As soon as the drug come out, goes on shortage very quickly. It just doesn't happen, and most of the time, it's not like something that we see. I mean, I've been compounding for 17 years, and I've never seen a drug that go to shortage so quickly and so much demand. And the problem is, like, let's say I know they're taking off the shortage list, but then when we can't do it, the compounders can do it, or both 503As and Bs, the big compounders and small compounders can do it. There's so many people are getting the compounds. So as soon as those people come back to the market and they want the actual, like Zepbound or Wegovy and things like that, what's going to happen? I mean, there's not going to be enough again, because all this compounded going to go away. But we don't know. But it just, to my mind, it's like something that we are like filling the gap. We are not trying to compete with the manufacturer. They did a great job. They did all the studies on it, and that's great. I mean, it's helping a lot of patients, but we are filling the gap for the people that they're just needing it. They can't get it. They're just shortages all over the world now. I mean, everybody's using it. It's not just in the US, so it had a lot of impact. We had to do a lot of research on it, and we'll see where it goes from here. It's just like we're hoping that at least it would be somehow that we can take care of the patient. That's our most important part of our job, to take care of him, keep him safe, keep him going with what their goals are in their life as well too.
So what's the transition as a pharmacist that gets really interactive with their patient? All of our independent pharmacies are like that. Compounding pharmacies worry about their patients. What's the usage of the medication, semaglutide, for example, that now it's time to titrate off the medicine so that you can get to the next level of maybe living without it, or now you're on the right diet. Now you've gotten, you've lost 50 pounds, which was very dangerous. You're going through conditioning. Talk to us about what's the end game for semaglutide, and for GLP-1s and for Ozempic. And this is going to come to an end at some point where we see the spike and everybody's happy because there's money and pharmaceutical companies love it. And you're obviously very popular as a compounding pharmacy. But what's the end game from a health perspective?
That's a good question, because it's still like there are people on it that's been on it for a long time. But what we do in our pharmacy, we make sure these people, we have like handouts that we give people. Please don't just rely on this. You need your supplementation, because if you lose the weight, it's not the fat you're losing your muscle mass too. It's not like just targeting your fat and you're not losing that. So please take your proteins. We brought proteins we were not doing protein shakes, but we brought a lot more. We had the powders, of course, as a supplements, but then now we tell everybody, please make sure you take enough protein. You have to take your supplements, because these people that they go on these drugs, they don't eat. So you be malnourished. You go test. I've talked to a lot of physicians. They say when we test them, they're like lacking B's and irons, and just because you're not eating as much food or meat, or you can't eat. We've talked to a lot of people, just they lose their appetite. And then we have been telling people, please take, because what happens after you stop, if you don't have enough muscle mass to break those the fat anymore, you're going to gain it a lot more. So make sure you build, and then exercise, like weight-bearing exercises helps a lot to keep those muscles. That's our goal, to educate people what's going to happen after you stop this, or something happens and you can't even afford it, or you can't get it. Whatever it is, you have to maintain your good health, the eating habit, because as you go, we've talked to a lot of people have lost 60, 70 pounds, and we've been talking to them, and some of them, most of them that we talk, they're doing it right. They're just taking their time to go to the gym, taking their protein, taking their supplements, making sure, you do need like some multivitamins, you do need some vitamin, a lot of stuff that it essential, because after you stop, you don't want to gain 3 times what you lost back, just because you don't have those muscles to fight it, because you lost them during the time. So it is really important. And then the other thing is, like, I know telemedicines are helping, but we tell patients, please be in contact with your physician. They need to do labs. You can't just keep being on this for a year and not doing any labs, because you don't know what you're losing, what you're gaining, and you just want to make sure there's no long-term effect. And those are all the stuff that even the manufacturer says. So we kind of come and tell people too, to just make sure. And as we go and we see and we learn more, we have like pretty much a lot of pharmacists that we talk every month, every couple of weeks, just to see what goes on everywhere else, how people see what is happening. So we just put our information together and try to help people. Of course, it is like something we don't know. When people stop, there's a lot of things can happen, but if they do it right while they're on it, hopefully it won't be as dramatic, and they can control it, they keep it the way it is, and it's a great thing that you brought up, just because a lot of people don't think about it. They're like, oh, I'm losing weight, I'm losing all the fat. No, you're not. You're losing everything. Your body, your muscles, your everything. Yeah.
I'm so glad that a pharmacist is saying this on this recording, because it's something that I do think about. I have friends, family members who have been on it, and I ask them when we talk or we text or something, what's the end game? What are you trying to get yourself to? Because this can't be a forever thing. And as Masoud was talking, Darshan, I was thinking, what about the ethical, implications of something like this? So, like, what are the ethical implications of prioritizing these drugs for cosmetic purposes? And I know there's a health benefit, because if you lose 60 pounds, you were obviously obese. But talk to us about things that you kind of worry about, because you stand on both sides of that. You're a pharmacist, and you're also keeping your client out of prison.
Before I jump into the bioethics of this, and I'm happy to talk about that, I'd like to address a few things Masoud said, which I think are really important. I think, to the point he's making, there are a bunch of physicians who are now talking about things like microdosing. And I think that's an area which is patient-specific, that in the long term, there may be a discussion about whether you can make large enough batches, because physicians are doing this at a large enough scale. I expect, I'd be surprised if a manufacturer is not going, maybe we need to explore this on its own. But as it exists right now, that's where pharmacies come into play. I think these are the areas that no one's talking about. Masoud mentioned a few seconds ago where pharmacies are trying to fill in the gaps. And I think that's the key piece. I think instead of it being pharmacies against manufacturers, it's everyone helping the patient. And I think Masoud's doing it right, where he's saying that's what we're trying to achieve, that goal. And I think that's really where we want to be. On the other hand, you have problems. Like, for example, you were talking about research grade, and the FDA recently just sent a warning letter, I believe, or a 483 to someone who was putting out research grade drugs, except it wasn't research. Just because you call it research doesn't make it research. I advise companies on research, and that would be problematic at best. It's fun. One of the things I think about from a pharmacy perspective, one of the things I was glad to get when I graduated from pharmacy school is this goal of reaching out and addressing the needs of patients. And I talked a little bit when we jumped on about how Walgreens, for example, is shutting down a lot of its stores. CVS is shutting down a lot of its stores because we somehow lost track of what we're doing. Yep. We were supposed to be the ones who looked after patients. We were supposed to be the ones who said, let me talk to you, understand what's going on. We were your neighborhood pharmacy. What we became is patients just became a number. And I think what this gives us is an opportunity to go back and address exactly that need. And what I'm talking about is Independence Blue Cross in Philadelphia came out recently and said, we're not going to allow for tirzepatide, I think it was semaglutide or Mounjaro, I forget which one, to be used for weight loss only. Okay, this is where pharmacists can come in and say, okay, let's talk about where you are, what disease you have. Let's talk about coverage. What are your options? What are your opportunities? There's really no, when I graduated from pharmacy school, the big thing was talking about warfarin dosing and outpatient warfarin dosing. And that was cool. And pharmacists were helping that. Where are those pharmacies right now saying we're going to help patients with weight loss? And I'm just not seeing enough of that. And that's the opportunity, I think. I think Masoud's talking about protein and talking about gym. And he's talking about patients are lacking iron. People need to go exercise. All of those things are where pharmacists can actually have a real impact sitting down with patients, because physicians don't have the time to do all of this. They're overburdened already. We have the opportunity. We keep tying it back to insurance payments. Patients have shown you that they're willing to pay cash for this. I don't know how much more proof of concept you want. They're paid that for just the drug. You sit with them and go, I can work with nutritionists. I can work with gym trainers. I can work with your physician and give you an overall treatment response. So it's not just you lose 30 pounds. How do you keep off that 30 pounds? I take Mounjaro right now, and I've lost 30 pounds. And Todd, that is exactly the question I've been thinking about, which is, what is the end game on this? And the truth is, I don't have an end game, because I know that I'm probably weak-willed, and I will probably always need something to keep me going, but it means I need someone to keep me on track. Where is the specialty pharmacy that helps me with all of these elements? Tirzepatide, GLP-1s in general, have changed the game. You've got gyms that are now shifting to how do you address patients who are on Ozempic. There's really, as far as I know, there's no actual weight muscle gain regimen that addresses these patients, but you know that there's a need for it. I think Pepsi came out and said, we're trying to figure out how we address this because patients aren't eating the same things anymore. Bariatric doctors are going, they aren't coming in for surgeries anymore because I can get you better efficacy from Mounjaro. Where are the pharmacists who are addressing all of these needs? And I think, and you talk about what's next. Masoud mentioned a few seconds ago this idea of compounding pharmacies are filling in this gap. The truth is, compounding pharmacies are absolutely a core portion of this need that needs to be met. But our next stage is probably going to be, there's research going on already on muscle-sparing GLP-1s. You're already talking about Victoza going generic, and you're going to talk about semaglutide and tirzepatide both going generic. What is the world going to look like in a world where these things are already happening? And you talk about, well, you can't take this forever. People have been taking Prozac forever. And yeah, there's almost no, I don't know of a single study that looks at longitudinal forever treatment options. But in those cases, the fact is that it is such a life-changing medication that people will do things they have to do so that they can keep their weight loss off. One of my favorite ones is the one that Oprah was a board member for.
Weight Watchers.
Weight Watchers, thank you. Exactly. And she was like, I can't stay on this anymore because the truth is I'm going to use GLP-1s and I'm going to lose the weight. So to pretend, there are on my LinkedIn, there are these doctors who come out and say, oh, no one's going to use these weight loss medications. There are easier ways, there are better ways to do it. Yes, those ways exist, but the truth is, I think, Todd, you mentioned 40% of all patients did not manage to address their weight loss. Mm-hmm. That whether it's for lack of trying, whether it's lack of time, whether it's something else, this gives you a lifeline. And I don't know how we can, in good ethics, say we're going to withhold the medication because we think you should try something different. So I think I referenced some of the ethics there, but I think some of the elements have to be balancing the needs of the patient. There are different philosophical means you can look at to analyze this. Do the needs justify the means? Do the means justify the needs? Bioethical standards, things like I'm blanking on the core. There are the core elements you look at in bioethics. And it's basically, is everyone being helped? Are the people who are part of the study actually going to be the ones who benefit, et cetera? And we can talk about each of those. But overall, without me taking over the whole time, I think the key piece is every single one of us on this Zoom right now are here because we want to help patients. Yeah. And as long as we keep patient needs first and respect the other elements that go along with it, I think everyone's working with the same goals. And I think that's a good sign.
It is. And I'm so glad that you've made that shift in gears. And for our listeners, it's the patient that is the most important member of our entire healthcare ecosystem. And they always seem like they're left last. Thus, the fights that we're seeing in legislation to reform PBMs and many of the things that are coming out of that. Josh Pirestani has experienced multiple providers over his life with things that he shared publicly with your own health, Josh. Share with us kind of the supplement mentality versus the fast food mentality, the difference between a physician and a pharmacist who's just going to put you in a transaction and the physician and pharmacist who are going to work together to get you through this transition of where you're at, but then along the way, teach you to live best with what you're experiencing in your health so that you become stronger and maybe there's less medication or maybe you're titrating down from medication. Because when I hear the word medication, Josh, I think of my liver and I think of my kidneys. I don't really think of I'm more worried about taking the medication long-term. What's that doing to my kidney? What's that doing? Should I drink more water? But Josh, you bring a really interesting perspective as a patient, and I want you to describe what you want out of this as a patient. What kind of provider, do you want the quick, transactional thing, or do you want a clinician and a pharmacist and a physician really kind of drilling down into your needs?
Yeah, I mean, I want like a collaborative practice. I prefer working with my pharmacist. I'm alive because of my pharmacist, and it's just unfortunate with physicians are very busy. They they're owned by the PBMs and big insurance companies now, so it's not like the old days. And with pharmacists, they have a lot more knowledge of what you put in your body and how it works and how medications work. And I think that's very important. With also adding supplementations, the right supplementations. If you take this medication, is it going to deplete vitamin Bs from you? That's like useful information as a patient that I get from my pharmacist. And a pharmacist who takes their time to do that, it's really beneficial. A lot of times I get recommendations like, hey Josh, you want to order this special test from your doctor. It's not a normal request, and to check for a certain vitamin level. So it's been really helpful from a pharmacist standpoint. I think there's a huge opportunity also the marketing side of things, with Darshan and Masoud mentioned, and even yourself is about, for pharmacists out there, there's I think a huge opportunity for weight management, and of course, working with your physicians is a vital piece of that, or vital part of that overall mission.
Darshan, we know you have other commitments, but we're going to have you back on for sure. You and I have a Shark Week to do coming up. So
I'm excited. So thank you, gentlemen, for letting me come on. This was amazing. Masoud, absolute pleasure meeting you. And Josh, Todd, amazing seeing you guys. I can't wait. I would love to do this again because I want to hear more about what Masoud's saying, because he is a treasure trove of information.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Darshan. Thanks.
All right.
Take care, guys.
I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for all the input. Appreciate you.
See you guys.
Right. So jumping back to the pharmacy owner, now that you've heard what Josh said, there's an opportunity for our independent community pharmacies, our compounding pharmacies, when they're working with a patient in this specific opportunity, semaglutide, obesity, weight loss, even diabetes, to dial into that patient and do a little bit more. And I love what you said as a pharmacy owner, how you have the protein powders, you have the education that you're talking to them, you encourage them to exercise, but kind of expand upon that based on what Josh shared.
So, what you brought up to Todd a few minutes ago, like food compared to supplements, right? Yeah, get it from the food if you can, not even talking about the GLP-1 or anything like during the weight loss. But, we have patients that come in here, we're like, okay, you do need like some probiotic. Like, oh, I eat yogurt. I'm like, you have to eat like a whole bucket of yogurt to get one of these. I mean, it does have probiotic, that's good, but then how much of it you need or how much your body needs? I mean, we all know like, okay, so and so food, but at the same time, supplements, I mean, first of all, you want to make sure to get a good supplements on what you're getting. It's like tested, third-party test. All the supplements we bring, we just want to make sure it's good again for our patient, because unfortunately, there are supplements there, you can make it in your garage and sell it. There's no real regulation, but the one that we bring, we do know that they do third-party testing. They do send it to like their like CGMP facilities, their clean areas.
All right, Masoud, as a compounder, as a pharmacy owner, what's kind of like your closing statement to the listeners out there regarding semaglutide, regarding obesity, developing a program, becoming more profitable in this space? What do you say to those listeners out there?
The things that we all have shared, like make sure, first of all, if there is a need, you just need to be on it. If you're just doing it for couple pounds, some people even do it for losing couple pounds, which, I've talked to the even cardiologists now, they see so much benefits. A lot of people not taking all their cholesterol medication as much because they're lost some weight. But just make sure to, first of all, get a good, know your pharmacy, where you're getting it from. Call them, ask question. I don't mind if many people ask me, okay, we've had doctors ask, can I see your testing? You keep saying we send them all. I have nothing to hide. I mean, we tested it. We're proud of it. We do everything that is possibly, and please don't go for what's the cheapest out there, or what's the I mean, make sure you're getting a quality, either it's a supplement, if it is your drugs, and just make sure they're kind of something that you are comfortable with the place or the doctors. If you're going online and filling something and the next day the drug's in your house, that's not the way it should be, because they haven't done any testing on you. They don't know who you are, and they're just sending the drug to you. Just make sure, please do some research on them, who they are. I know they're good and bad and everything. Pharmacists too, they're good and bad. Just make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you find the right place to do it, and just if you have any question, always you can call us and we can help. Although we pretty much just help. Right now we are only in few states, but we are growing and trying to help other states too as we grow. But we're in California now, Idaho, and Wyoming, Montana. We can ship to those places. And if you have any question, but just to wrap it up, it's a great way of doing the weight loss with this GLP-1s, as long as you follow the protocol. People sometimes they inject themselves more just because they think they're going to lose faster. You don't want to lose fast either, and you don't want to be sick in the hospital with vomiting and diarrhea, or all kind of GI issues and stuff. So please follow your instruction, your doctors. If you have question, call your pharmacy or doctor, ask them. Don't just assume you know. If you don't know, just call. I mean, no question is stupid. Every question has a reason for it to be there, and we love to hear all the questions that comes in, because we've heard so many things, especially when people go from when they started the compounding. A lot of people didn't know how to draw, so we started doing a video, putting it on the website so people can go watch. If you're mailing to them, we have a QR code. Go watch the video before you do anything, because last thing you want somebody overdosing themselves or underdosing themselves and getting themselves to a trouble. But anything. I'm glad you did this. It's a great topic, and we are trying to make sure everybody get the education. We send out with every prescription a lot of education material, just to make sure people are following some kind of and we put like discounts on our core supplements for those people, just to make sure they take it. Don't say it's expensive, just take it. You're paying a lot of stuff. It's your life. It's still less than a coffee a day from Starbucks.
So, Josh, I want to thank you, because you brought Masoud, and he and his pharmacy, which you can learn more about him using the links in our show notes, but it's icpfolsom.com.
Folsom Prison.
Yeah, Folsom Prison.
Folsom Prison, Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Reminds me of something, because the prison is next to our pharmacy, actually, like about half a mile. So.
But you have like 15 other conditions: sports pharmacy, veterinary compounding, sterile compounding, thyroid, dermatology. This is an amazing resource. We have to have you back and kind of dig into another one of these and get kind of a mashup with another provider and really dig into this and set the stage for how to become successful at this as a compounder, but also as an independent community pharmacy.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'd love to have be more involved and help if we can. I'll be glad to come back as you need are. And we do all kind of, as you mentioned, compounding and special needs, and for even veterinary, a lot of pet medications and stuff as well. So, but thank you, Josh, for bringing me. And then also thank you, Todd, for doing this podcast. It was great, especially having Darshan. He's very knowledgeable guy, and just All of you guys are great. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And Josh, this is one of many new series that we're going to be putting out in partnership with Dispense Times. So a shout out to those business leaders out there. If you want to take advantage of this environment that Josh has created, just take a look. Go to dispensemarketing.com and click on the magazine, which will be right up top. It'll kind of give you a description about. But if you want to do a mashup, if you want to do a series, and we can really put a lot of effort and meticulousness and study discussion into this, reach out to our teams, dispensemarketing.com once again, or even the Pharmacy Podcast, pharmacypodcast.com. Thank you so much for doing this, Josh. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Masoud. Also, thank you, Darshan. Look forward to next time.
That's right. We'll talk with you next time. And in the meantime, keep pushing, keep realizing that there are resources out there to help you. There are so many organizations that do nothing but cater to the success of our compounding and independent community pharmacies. And with that, we hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Thank you.
See you guys later.